Hey folks, we're here with EJ Bistline.
Hi.
From Velociwrapper. How did the French say it?
Velociwrapper.
Velociwrapper. Excellent. Here from Utah, St. George area. Well, thanks for making the trip down.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jacob and I had a great time getting to know you guys, meeting you for the first time at Inner Solar here in February, so not too long ago. I think you've got a whole marketing shtick built into the design of what is an awesome solution to wrapping cable and, the material handling of it and laying it. But the signs are awesome.
Thank you.
How many days since the last incident? 0, he says.
I happen to be the last incident today.
You were the last one. All right. I love it. No back pain, no zip ties.
So interesting enough about that, you're talking about leaning into the branding side of it. It wasn't that way until the first of the year. This year, we went through a major rebrand.
No kidding.
And the color scheme, the logos, everything is brand new as of January 1st.
Okay, what was it before?
So it was Velociwrapper, but it was yellow and gray. Everything on a job site's yellow and gray. But I think the biggest thing is we didn't know who we were. So we had to rebrand so that we could, how can I tell somebody else who I am if I don't know who I am, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all new.
Wow. Okay, how old's the company?
We started in 2021.
Okay.
So it's fairly new.
Fairly new, 4 years. Rebranding's a big deal, especially when you're young.
Yep.
Right? Now it's marketing, advertising, brand awareness. It's easy to remember. So
yeah, it really
I don't know who came up with it, or y'all just sat in a conference room and hashed it out, or what?
But the name, so my older brother's the one that founded the company, and him and one of his coworkers, they were plowing cable on wind and solar farms.
Okay.
And they saw the zip ties. They're like, there's got to be a better way, right? So my brother designed the original machine, which, funny enough, he built in 2020, the prototype. It's still in the field wrapping cables today. The prototype is.
Oh, look at that.
So, and that's not usual.
No,
we're finding out
never
as we
last.
Yeah, as we build new things, we're finding out that that's definitely a one-off. But it's really cool to see.
I bet.
So, but his coworker, who we eventually bought out in 2021, he's the one that came up with the name Velociwrapper. So
good name. Your prototype still running is a big deal. We talk about prototypes in this industry a lot. Because going to market is a scary moment for any company. And one of my good friends, Joe Ciccone, talks about how you have to go to market. It's this ready, fire, aim, not the other way around, because you have to go have some failures to figure out how to make your product better.
I think Mark Zuckerberg's the one that said, if you're not embarrassed by your first launch, you waited too long.
That's good. That's good. Fair metric.
Yeah.
Fair metric.
So we had it good on the first one. We've done a few new products since, and yeah, of course we have some prototypes that are sitting in the back of the shop now.
Yeah.
That aren't in the field wrapping, but yeah. And we have a really exciting one in the works right now that's a whole new version that opens up and you can pull the cables out mid-run.
Oh, open at the side.
It's significantly more complicated.
I bet.
So,
I bet. So it was your brother, and he was sick of the zip ties. How many zip ties died before the Velociwrapper was born?
Well, I'll put it this way: I was on a project actually over here by Edwards Air Force Base, and the superintendent on the project told me they spent $1.3 million on zip ties on that one project. And that doesn't include the labor to install them.
No, that's the 3 or 4 cents per zip tie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and depending on the size of the cable, those zip ties can get big.
Oh,
you're
that's
doing
true.
Some of these jobs, they're putting 1500s underground, right? So you're getting these massive zip ties that I don't know what the cost is now. It's been all over the board, but I've seen them 80 cents plus, right?
Okay.
And so you have these massive zip ties and you're buying thousands and thousands of these things. It's one of those things that I feel fortunate that we're the ones that have the solution, because it's a solution that everybody's looking for.
Right.
So, and that's a fun spot to be in from a business perspective. So it's just figuring out how to capitalize on that. And
No, I love it. I think zip ties to me should always be a temporary use, right? Not a permanent long-term use. When they are permanent, they're permanent for about a year on anything that's maybe not buried. And you're going to go and you're going to replace them because they break.
well, and on top of that, the install, right? Especially if I have 1500s, you get 1500s and you have 3 cables that are each about 7 pounds a foot.
Yeah.
And you got to pick that up, which means you're bending over, you're picking that up, you're getting your fingers in there. Then you're trying to figure out how to get the zip tie around. And they can go pretty fast at the first of the day.
Yeah, that's right.
But come about 10, 11 o'clock, and now they're all moping about out there, right? And they figure
even slower after that lunch break. I know I would be.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So just having a solution for that you put the cables in it and drive.
Right.
That's the best part.
I think I liked also about it is it had the ability to yes, you can pull it on the trailer, or you can stick it on a forklift. You can stick it on other machinery, right? Depending on the layout of the land and how you're doing the civil. It's very versatile.
Well, and that's it. It was very intentional on our part, because I've kind of harped on the crew that we've got to fit into their process, whatever that is, right? Because if I come up with a solution and I show up on a job and say, here's a solution, but you have to change the way you're doing things, it's a lot more difficult to get someone to buy that solution, right? And it may be a better way, but unless I can come up and say it's a very easy integration, then it's a hard sell on my part. So trying to come up with different things, and it's why we did like the excavator adapter, right? Now you can hang it from an excavator and just go, and people are doing that and seeing huge success with it, right?
Yeah.
Build the trailer, because a lot of feedback was we can't fit it on the back of our real trailer. We just don't have the space. So build a trailer, throw it on the back, just come up, and we'll continue to do that as we get feedback from people, where it's how do we fit it into your flow rather than fitting you into our flow, I guess is.
Right. Yeah. Understand the challenges, not just the cost and pain of zip ties, time and material, but also what equipment is on site, how is it easily implemented into the existing flow of work. That's really clever. I just always have a kick out of the fact that you guys had so much fun with this name and the branding. I mean, you took something that fixes a problem that's been a problem for a long time. Mm-hmm. Great solution, integration, excellent engineering, makes sense, right? Figure out how to, purchase, lease, however you're getting them out into the market. And then you have a ton of fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
With the marketing. You didn't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
And we have an incredible crew of guys, because you look at the brand's really fun and everything, but we have a lot of fun at work too. And we put a lot of emphasis on that. And part of that is because, it's a family company. I've got several brothers working with me, and the friends that I've known for years and years. I mean, the 2 main people running the company are myself and my friend that I met in 5th grade.
Oh my goodness.
So it's a lot of fun, and try to integrate that and help these people grow and have fun while they're growing. My younger brother, 22 years old right now, is one of our main engineers.
Oh man, that's cool.
That's fun.
That's cool. Boy, you got a family situation, a community support. Okay. I love that, but you always hear the stories of working with family and working with friends. So give us a story. Hasn't been all perfect. I'm sure the dinosaur personalities come out once in a while.
They do, but I think we're actually quite fortunate with how well we get along. We're a very close-knit family as far as that goes. And it's also something that I've thought about a lot and tried to, steer it in such a way. It's why I put so much emphasis on, we have fun there. We have a lot of fun there. And it's part of that, is that I've thought about that a lot, about how do we avoid the issues with family, because I know what you're talking about. Been there, done that. But no, we haven't had as many issues as you might think.
Oh, that's lovely.
So,
or if you do, you find a way to resolve it and then get back to having fun.
Yeah.
I think that's key. I've made this mistake a few times with family and friends.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so uncomfortable trying to resolve that difference and move on. Now I look back and the style is, it's okay to be tough on each other.
Yeah. Well, you kind of have to.
If you want to be successful, It's what it takes. And then afterwards, you don't have to talk about it. Just get back to laughing. It's okay. That part doesn't need to be dwelt on.
Yeah. And if you don't have those conflicts, are you really growing? It's you have some sort of conflict and you get through it and come out the other side. Everybody involved is now a step above what they were before, right? Because we had this experience, we can get through it and move on. And it's so hopefully they're smaller conflicts and you step up and move on and grow. And that's the biggest thing for me. And it's my motto quite often is that I tell people at the company is our primary purpose is building people. The machines are a byproduct. So, and I have to take that approach or it just turns into another company, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to pull on that thread a little bit more because I think there are a lot of people out there that work with their friends, family too, of course. Maybe it's a little more rare, but friends for sure. And then when one person leaves and goes and maybe to another company or a new adventure, a lot of times there's more opportunity and they want to bring their friends with them, right? Makes sense. You've been working together. You've been successful. Keep the success going. But now you have a personal relationship too.
Yeah.
And I always think that, no, I don't always think. I have learned just in the last year, to be honest, that it's better just to be real honest, like you're at work, and it's not your best friend, it's not your family, it's your respected colleague, and you talk and act as such, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And it's one of the things I've actually done, especially with my brothers with this company, is encourage them not only to make those decisions on their own, rather than, hey, come be a part of this because you're my brother, right? But help them start their own thing. Mm-hmm. So my head of production is my brother, but he also owns his own production company that does, welding and fabrication, right?
Oh, neat.
And we helped him set that up. And we'll help push that, right? As long as it doesn't get in the way. Now, if ever it comes to a point that he's like, hey, this is busy, I'm going to go do this. Cool, go do it. Because again, we're in the process of building people. We're in the business of building people, and we'll find another person that can fill that place. Not that he's not useful, not that he's not the greatest person ever to fill that place, but there will be someone that can be trained in and take that place. And I think approaching it from a mindset of not lack, but a mindset of abundance, right? Yeah. There is talent out there. There are people out there. We'll attract the right people. We'll draw the right people in to make it successful. And if the best thing for any person in the company is to start their own thing and move on and go do something, then I'm going to encourage that. I'm going to help that. And from that mindset of abundance, there will be someone that can come in and fill that place at least as well, right?
It's part of Altair's commitment to its employees, actually. So if somebody wants to go somewhere else, we say, come tell us first. You won't find a better recommendation, and we'll go help you find those people and get the job that you're wanting. Yeah. Don't want to stand in the way of anyone. It's better to help.
I told my friend, I says, my goal is to create people that can go off and do their own thing, but create an environment they don't want to leave, right? so that they stick around, so that you have highly intelligent people and high paid people, right? That's the funnest thing ever as a manager or a business owner, is to pay people a lot.
Yeah.
It's very fun
That's cool.
because to see them grow, I mean, to watch somebody's face when you're like, hey, I'm going to give you a raise, right? That is so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
They light up, and you know what? For the next week, they are out there smashing stuff, right? They're
man.
getting stuff done.
There's nothing better than a good raise.
Correct.
Man.
And I think sometimes I selfishly enjoy that more than they do.
Oh, well,
Just-
that's good.
Just because it's so much fun. From a personal viewpoint, that's kind of my goal.
Yeah.
Is to help people. I mean, I have it hanging above my desk right now. My personal goal is to positively impact the lives of 100 million plus people,
I
right?
remember this now.
And so that plays into all of this I'm talking about. That plays so much into the way that I make decisions on the business level, is how do I help people impact their lives? Like, I want every person I come into contact with to leave a better person than they were before we met.
We'd like to take this time to thank another one of our wonderful sponsors, Podge Engineering. Podge Engineering, making wind and solar all we know it can be. Are your renewable energy assets underperforming or not performing at all? Did you expect many years of longevity and they're failing on you now? Podge LLC offers many customized, engineered products and solutions to get these assets back on track. Podge Engineering also performs root cause analysis, engineering services, procurement, and construction. Visit podge.org. That's PADGE.org. Remember Podge, making wind and solar all we know it can be. Positively help 100 million people. I remember that now. When your screen was on when we talked not so long ago.
Yeah. And I don't know if I will know when I hit that goal. Probably not. Because how do I know?
You'll never know.
And it may be just smiling at someone, right?
Yeah.
So I was in Salt Lake a while ago, and I actually met the New York Times correspondent to China.
Okay.
And she told me a story. I think she was former New York Times correspondent, but she told the story about how she was arrested in China and put on house arrest for a long time and then deported back to the United States. And when she got back to the United States, the customs officer had no knowledge of anything, right? She walks in and he looked at her passport and stamped it and said, "Welcome home." And those two words she said completely broke her. She broke down crying and fell on the floor. Like, he had no idea how much of an impact that made on her. To this day, he probably doesn't. And that to me is the type of thing that's super important, is the little things of helping people. And my position, I feel fortunate to be put in a position where I can help more people, right? And rather than looking at from a selfish viewpoint of I can be the big boss and steer this thing, right? It's like, how can I help more people? And even from the customer's perspective, how can I be the Robin, they be the Batman, rather than vice versa, right? How can I be the trusty sidekick?
Yeah.
They be the hero. And I think that's a huge thing in business, is if you can make the customer the hero and you're the sidekick, there's your secret, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the customer, but man, this is more about the people on your team.
It is, but people in general.
People
is
in general.
kind of what I'm saying.
So was there a time in your life that somebody helped you in a way that gave you this outlook?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's actually an interesting story. So I went to 7th grade of homeschool / private school, right? That is the sum total of my formal education, with the exception of years later, I did a 4-year apprenticeship class with the electrical contractor.
What do you mean? You only went to 7th grade? Mm-hmm. What did you do the rest of your childhood?
Got in trouble.
Okay. We'll pull on that one in a minute.
But so my 7th grade teacher was a private school teacher. He is now, interestingly, he's the CEO of a very large company based out of Cedar City, Utah.
Okay.
That they've completely transformed the steel erection industry.
Okay.
And I've always found it very interesting that he went into that business with relatively little knowledge about that industry, but very, very good at people. And he made a huge impact on my life. I don't know that he even knows how much of a mentor he was to me through that 7th grade. So that was a big part of.
So this was a whole school year where was there a defining moment? Was there some paradigm shift, or?
I think it was just in general the whole school year, because I got expelled 4 times that year.
Okay.
So I wasn't a model student, but the way that he treated me, the way that he helped me through all the lows, right? It made a huge impact. And I think another thing that was a pretty big defining moment for me was actually more recently, 2021, 2022, when I started reading books from Bob Proctor, right? People like that, the motivational speakers, and flipped. Put a huge focus on positivity, right? And personal development, personal growth, and helping the people around me to do that, to the point that that's bled over into the company now, to where I've started, we have a voluntary meeting every morning that all the employees can gather, and we can read out of these books together.
A voluntary meeting. What percentage are showing up now?
For the most part, it's about 80.
That's amazing.
On some days, it's 100.
To a voluntary meeting.
But it's made a huge impact.
Sure.
It's made a huge difference, because people are starting to grasp that if I change my mindset, then the people around me change, right?
Right.
But I don't know, that it made a huge difference in my life.
It's contagious.
It is.
It's not as contagious as negative attitudes and context, but it's contagious. Negativity is so much more contagious. That's why you really have to be intentional about your positivity.
Yes.
You have to be intentional about it. So show up to your voluntary meetings, schedule it, prep it. It's effort.
Yeah.
And then it is contagious. Our perception and outward emotions and how we address it's one of the very few things that the human can control.
Yeah.
Right. There isn't much. Control's kind of a myth for the most part, right? You think you're controlling something, but somebody's probably going to laugh at you and say, "Yeah, good luck." But our attitude and our perception about things is one of the few we can control.
Well, and it's interesting because you say the negativity is more contagious, and you're absolutely right. It's more contagious, but the positivity is more powerful when it manifests. So if I have an experience of, I focus on something, I have a goal, I very positively focus on that. When that comes about, it's so much more powerful than the negative ever was. But it takes patience, and it takes pushing through, and you get to a point, and I've got to a point where, recently we had a little bit of a struggle with some of the employees at the company, and throughout the entire thing, it didn't really faze me. I didn't get stressed like I used to in the past. And yes, it was stressful in a sense, because you have people that are not getting along. There's extreme talent. You don't want to lose people, but holding on to that belief that, it's going to work out.
Yeah.
And it just didn't stress me out. There were people in the company that were like, I didn't get any sleep last night. And I was like, you didn't? I slept like a baby. I don't know. I'm all right. But
yeah. So, I'm a little analytical, but if I said that in a formula, is that your positive attitude in life is not the subtraction, doesn't equal subtraction of problems, but it is the addition of strength to deal with your problems.
Correct. Right? And I think
you're still going to have problems, but now you're stronger to deal with them.
But I think it also helps the people around you, because if they see that positivity, then that too is contagious, right? So if I can remain positive, especially when everybody's looking to me. So if the strife and the contention is under me in the company, then I am that linchpin, right? And if everybody's looking to me and I'm holding that attitude, then everybody else is like, well, if he can do that with this kind of stress, then I bet I can figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And we saw it happen in the last couple of weeks. And it's one of those experiences that people call you up and they're like, man, I'm sorry you have to go through this. And I'm like, no, I'm actually really thankful for it, because I am a different person than I was before.
Yeah.
And I'm better for everyone involved and the people that weren't involved, because, I grew through this, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of validation from trying to get my mindset to that point to where my knee-jerk reaction is positive rather than negative, where it's, you hit a deer with your car and you're like, man, I wonder what's up now. I'm getting a new car, right?
Yeah. Something's changing.
Yeah, rather than, oh, crap,
But it's a muscle that you have to build, and it's a muscle that you have to maintain.
Yeah, for sure.
So 7th grade, you found a new mentor, changed your outlook, and then somehow fast forward to, I don't know, a few years ago when you started implementing this at Velociwrapper, or did you implement it before?
It was at Velociwrapper. So what happened before Velociwrapper is I was working for an electrical contractor.
Uh-huh.
We did work all over the nation. I mean, I did from Palm Springs to Seattle to Comfort, West Virginia to Tallahassee, jobs all over the nation. And we had some experiences at that business where they brought in management that was detrimental, and it wasn't very fun from my perspective. So when I went to Velociwrapper and I was put in a position of management, that became my determination, is not do that, right? How do I change the experience to a positive for everybody working? So there was a little bit of that as well. I think that company's doing better now. I hope they are. But it's one of the biggest reasons that I quit that company and went to Velociwrapper.
Okay. I bet without that 7th grade experience, you wouldn't know that you needed to make a change, right? Because we can, as humans, get stuck in what we think is normal.
It was the only job I've ever quit.
Oh, that's a big deal.
But I'm also fiercely loyal.
Yeah.
As a general rule, I'm a fiercely loyal person, and it takes a lot to get me to do that. And it's also, even with the strifes and the problems that you have with the company, it's also why I take the view as a manager of maybe somebody's not in the right position rather than somebody's worthless, we need to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Because it's part of that loyalty and that holding on to, there is something here that we can work with. Let's figure it out and work with it. And I think that's part of what I did with that business in general is, I mean, I worked for a company started in 2009, and then that company was bought out by this electrical contractor in 2013. So from 2009 to 2021 was when I worked for those two companies. But yeah, it was a good experience for me.
For sure. Clear. You learned a ton, and then you get to take it on to the new phase of life.
Yeah. Well, and I grew through that company. I'm also the type of person that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to try to do it. I'm going to be the best. I mean, I'm kind of competitive that way.
Nice.
I'll figure it out. I'm going to go do this. So at that company, I went through the apprenticeship program. I did all that. I became a journeyman electrician, eventually became a master electrician in Colorado.
Okay.
And then got into electrical engineering. So I was doing electrical engineering when I quit that company. I was head of their engineering department and had a few people drawing electrical plans under me. So it was a good experience.
That's good. I'm going to keep pulling on this positive attitude thread. So, what's the advice on dealing with stress? Because it occurs all the time to all people.
So I'll put it this way. So when we're going through this quote unquote stressful experience, I mean, recently we went through one, and I would have these phone conversations with my business partner, right? And every single one of those conversations when we hung up, the last thing I would tell him is, here's my belief. The right things will happen at the right time and we'll make the right decisions. And so that positive affirmation, I'm going to say this out loud to him so that we're both on that same thought process. Mm-hmm. And oh my goodness, that's what happened, right? So I think it's a lot of that of, if you can convince yourself to believe it, you'll figure out ways to do it.
Sure. That's the long play.
Yeah.
What about those short ones? Those are the tricky ones, right? Because they sneak up on you.
They are. And I think it's part of what I was talking about with the knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
If I can make it a habit of focusing on that positive, focusing on the non-issues, because quite often we have an issue and that's all of our focus when there's so many other things going on. I mean, I can be so focused on an issue with an employee that needs to fix his attitude. We need to figure this out. And at the same time, I'm making a $500,000 sale over here. There's a massive positive going on.
Sure.
Right? So why am I focused on this?
Yeah.
That's
the broken part.
Yeah. Focus on this and then channel the energy that needs to go into this to fix this problem. But focus on the positive more than the negative, I think, is a huge part.
How long did it take you to get to that knee-jerk reaction where that habit is a positive response?
3 years.
3 years. That's commitment.
It is.
It's simple. Like, it's so simple a child can understand it, right?
Yeah.
But for adults, it takes years of practice to make it a habit.
It's interesting, though, because I learned something early on that if I change one thing, it can domino quite a bit. So what happened is I was getting up in the morning. I'd get up just in time to make it to work on time, right? And at some point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get up at the same time every single morning. And it changed my mindset. It's interesting because I changed that one thing and it began to domino into all these other things to where I was experiencing a lot less stress at work with every problem. And there were seemingly a lot less problems. I don't think there were a lot less problems. I think I noticed a lot less. And I focused on them a lot less, I should say, because I did notice them.
In today's fast-paced industry, having the right tools isn't just an advantage, it's essential. That's where ETI Energy Tools comes in. With over 75 years of industry experience, they deliver strategic procurement solutions that enhance safety, efficiency, and cost savings. ETI provides industrial tools, safety gear, test and measurement equipment, and heavy repair solutions, all backed by a vast network of manufacturers. Whether it's tool kitting, PPE standardization, or high voltage tooling, ETI saves companies time and money while ensuring they have the right tools for the job. Contact ETI at etienergytools.com to learn more and gear up for success.
So I'm a very religious person. So this thought process going through my head. So my mother hit a deer. That's why I brought up the deer thing.
It's fresh.
But so she hit a deer in my brother's car, his Range Rover.
Ooh.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
She called and she says, "Hey, I hit a deer and it munched the front of the car pretty bad." And my instant thought was, I wonder what God's up to. And that was so much fun because it was like, wait a minute, I finally got there. I finally got to where my knee-jerk reaction is, hey, what good's going to come from this? And whether religious or not doesn't matter. It's that focus on making that muscle reaction just be good, right? What good's happening here? And because I think quite often negative things happen because it's opening the way for a more positive thing to happen if you treat it right. That's my belief.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's always our perception, right, about the problem. It can be solved in a happy way, a positive way. It can be solved with a lot of yelling and spitting as well. Yeah. That's not the right way. I'm going to share and then shamelessly plug my girls, my wife and daughter. My wife has this weird knee-jerk reaction to tease and make jokes anytime there's an uncomfortable situation anywhere. And for most of my life now, it has really bothered me. I'm like, no, this is the time where I need to be upset. Leave me alone. I'm going to solve this and, go be grumpy and figure my thing out. Fast forward years later, my daughter actually graduates college next month in
That's awesome.
philosophy. And she wrote a paper, and I have it pinned up in my office because it ends with celebrate stress it builds. It's like building a muscle. It's like building a callus. And now look how tougher you are.
That's
the
awesome.
Next time it won't bother you.
Yeah.
So celebrate your stress. And I thought, oh man, I think these two people were putting my life on purpose.
I love that.
I don't know what I'd do without them. Just be grumpy.
I love that. Well, and like I said, you start to notice less problems. And I think it's like lifting weights, right?
Yep.
At first, it's very difficult to lift so many pounds. And then later on, you don't even notice that.
Yeah.
Because you've done it enough that you've built up those muscles. And I think it's the same thing with your mind. If I can focus on the good things, then the bad things that do affect me do that less and less and less, and to where it's like, hey, that used to affect me,
Yes. Yeah. So, you just get stronger. Yeah. And then you just need your recovery days to let that muscle rest once in a while. That's it. Oh, I love that. And the change in jobs and stressful, maybe a company, maybe a job. I looked back here and I saw this picture, and that was from a dear friend of mine, Doug Hudson, and he's 1982 or 84. But he was telling a story about how all of his career, he would wake up in the morning so happy to go to work. He goes, that's excited to get to work.
Love that.
Like a whole career excited, especially in the old days. And those are the hardest ones, right? It's outside, it's cold, it's weather, it's risky work, but he's excited to go. And it's made me think about this over the last few months, about the jobs I've had where I was excited to go to work in the morning, and the jobs I've had where I was dreading going to work in the morning, and then trying to find my fun on the weekends, and then just living for the weekend. We've heard this old saying, because I want to get back to where I'm happy and fun, But really, it's an exercise of find your fun, every day, right? Every moment.
For sure.
And then be excited to do it again.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what we were talking about of encouraging people if they want to be doing something else. I'm not doing anyone a service if I'm encouraging them to stay in a position that they're not happy in, right? In a place, even if they're very valuable to the company and that is very advantageous to the company for them to be there. In some ways, I think that it's not if they don't enjoy it, right? If they don't want to get up in the morning because I have to go back to work now, right? So I love that, just being excited. I don't know if you ever listened to like the Patrick McManus stories back in the days.
No, tell me.
He wrote a lot of novels, and he was a bit of a comedian, but there was an older gentleman in his books, older character, and he'd wake up in the morning and say, the most wonderful thing happened to me this morning. It's like, what? I woke up. Dang if that don't make my day, right? And I love that attitude.
Just happy about it.
Yeah.
That is a great attitude.
Yeah.
Just to wake up.
Yeah.
I'm usually happier if I slept all night. Yeah. And I wake up and go, yes.
There's always that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and those jobs that come mid-afternoon, late evening, and you're still at work and you don't want to leave, right? That's fun. Mm-hmm. Where it's just like, I got to go home. Like, I'm just having a good time. I can pick this back up in the morning, right? But those kind of experiences are fun because you start to realize that I'm making money doing something I love to do. And I like that.
Yeah, that's good. Boy, those positive comments in the morning. I'm going to have to write that down. I've gotten into losing that habit. That's an easy one to forget.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. That's a good one. I years ago, one of my classmates, we worked on wind turbines, traveled around the country, and we'd share hotel rooms, to save money. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't matter if we had a bunch of beers the night before or not. Boy, he'd pop up out of bed, splash water, dressed and ready. We're having breakfast. He goes, good winds today, boys. It's going to be a good day. We got good winds. It could be no wind. It could be a blizzard. It didn't matter, but we're in the wind business. So I just say good winds.
There you go.
Get excited and, round up or wind everybody up. Yeah.
Those guys are fun to have on the crew.
They're rare to find.
Yeah. The ones that are just like, best day ever today, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah. It should be contagious when you find them.
Yeah.
Stick close to them.
For sure.
Let some of that rub off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. So you're finding your way to positively help 1,000,000 people, and I think you're
100 million.
100,000,000.
There's a difference.
Yeah, there's another comma in there. 100,000,000 people. How many are on the planet? What do we got? We're in the billions, right?
We're in the billions.
Yeah.
There's roughly 350 million in the U.S.
Okay. So you're only looking a little less than a third of the U.S.
Yeah.
All right. You're lowering
I'm
your
good.
standard.
I
All
got
right.
this.
I got you.
Here's an interesting thing about that, though. When I wrote down that goal and put it above my desk, I spent a few days thinking about it first, right? I'm like, okay, I'm going to define a life goal because I've been defining goals in business for years now, right? I'm going to meet this goal. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Am I doing that in my personal life? And do I have an overarching life goal, right? So I sat down for, I think it was like 3 days over a weekend and came up with this, wrote it down, had it hanging above my desk Monday. About 2 weeks later, then a friend of mine introduced me to a college professor, does engineering at Southern Utah University. And I started talking to him about what I did with design and everything, and he got really excited. Eventually, he approached me and offered me a teaching position there. I just got done teaching a semester as a 7th grade homeschooler to a college class.
Okay.
And that opportunity opened up about 2 weeks after I wrote down that goal. And I seriously wonder if had I not written that down, it would have never come.
Or you wouldn't have seen it, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or I would have ignored it, right?
Right.
Some approach and be like, no, there's no way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I tried to do that, not going to lie, because it's scary. It's scary when somebody comes up and is like, hey, do you want to teach college? And you're like, I went to 7th grade.
Let's go.
Yeah. But luckily, my business partner, my good friend, he pushed me quite hard. He pushes me to, do it. He's like, what are you thinking? This can go on your resume, man. Right? You can put this on your resume. So it's fun. But these kinds of opportunities opened up as soon as I sat down and said, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to make this happen. And so here we are.
Here you are.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the 7th grade thing is a good joke, but you've clearly well educated yourself. You have a higher education for sure, however you obtained it.
Well, and I think it was a little bit born into me because my dad's that way.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very studious person.
Mm-hmm.
He loves to study, and he told me one day he loves taking tests because he doesn't have to work while he's testing. So that's kind of the bloodline, right?
Yeah.
So I did a lot of that. I went through advanced mathematics on my own.
Okay.
Clear up through calculus 1.
Mm-hmm.
But that type of stuff I had to do on my own. But I guess I kind of wanted to, and it's part of that competitive nature I was telling you about, where when I get into something, I'm just going to do this, right? And I got to a point with electrical engineering, I was doing all the engineering. I just had an engineer stamping it for me, right? So I wasn't an engineer, but I was doing everything on it. So, but all that was basically self-taught.
I love it. And the information is available today.
It is.
I feel like I have the world's most powerful computer at my fingertips all the time, right? Whatever I'm curious about, whatever I need to know next, it's easy to find information and go learn.
Yeah. Yeah, all it takes is a want to.
That's it. That's it.
There's some consistency that has to be there.
Right.
And one of the things that's helped me with that the most, interestingly, is I decided I was going to learn a new language.
Okay.
If you're going to do that, consistency is the most important part
Yeah.
to find out, right? When I learned how to do that consistently every single morning, and this is part of when I decided to get up earlier, right? Mm-hmm. Get up at a certain time, get up, do my language studies, right?
Okay.
So that helped a lot of things because I'm now developing this consistency muscle, and it's part of what plays into everything else. So I don't know. I think that's part of why you wouldn't know that I went to 7th grade.
No.
So,
Which language?
Swedish.
Swedish.
Yeah.
How did you choose that one?
I have no idea. I like doing things different, I guess. And
I mean, it's fairly Latin based. The consonants fairly consistent. So, okay.
yeah, and we did a little bit of German in our homeschool. So I know a tiny bit of German.
Yeah.
And I think it was more that where it's because the German's in my blood, then that's what I would naturally go to, but I like to branch out and do things differently. So Swedish, I guess, right? I don't know.
Did you go there and get to use it?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
We will.
Yeah, that's on the docket then.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Velociwrapper will go there in not too long. It's been pretty high on our explore reports for international markets.
They've been building wind turbine sites. They've been investing in infrastructure.
Yeah.
A lot of internal, take care of the energy demand for the country.
Oh, and they rank pretty high on ease of doing business for international companies too.
Yes. Yeah. I worry about when that happens, I often worry about internal federal regulation. Like, why did it slow down your own people?
True.
Yeah. Well, good. I can't now. How's Velociwrapper in the snow?
It depends on.
You got a lot of it there.
Yeah, depends on if they're digging in the snow.
Okay.
Because that's usually it's usually slow in the winter because of that. That's part of why I've pushed Australia so hard, because it does slow down, and I think even in Scandinavia it'll do the same thing, right? It'll just be longer, the winter months, but they do have their time that they dig. It works no matter what. Velociwrapper works.
Right.
So it's one of the fun things about it is it's just mechanical and it works.
Yeah. Well, as long as you can have a machine that drives,
that's
then
correct.
It'll work. It'll work. Yeah.
And usually if it's too bad of conditions, they can't dig anyways.
Sure.
Like the ground's frozen, they're not digging trenches, right? So yeah.
No, but I mean they work into the winter, right? Where the ground's still warm, but the snow's coming down, and but the ground's still soft enough to there's a weird few weeks there too.
I think we can safely say Velociwrapper's not the pinch point there.
No.
If they're out working, the Velociwrapper will work.
Yeah.
So
if you can work, the Velociwrapper can work too.
No, it's a fun product from my point of view, because there's very little that just doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, there's usually a solution for it. It just works. And it's so much fun. And I love selling people. I think I did this to you at the show where I told you all about it and you were all excited. And then I was like, oh, by the way, there's no motors.
Yeah.
Right? I love that. It's the little knockout punch.
Simple, right?
Yeah.
It's gears. Less equipment to fail.
Yep.
Yeah. Just keep turning.
Because we know construction people. If it can break, it will.
You bet. And it's always harsh conditions.
Yep.
It's always harsh conditions. Extreme hot, extreme cold.
So we have that. You saw the Fairlead arm, right? That was down there on the trailer, the big long 15-foot arm that lifts the cables off to the side.
Yes.
So we actually had a customer that bent one of those things. And I have no idea how you bend a 6x6 steel tube.
Hey, you push it against bigger stuff.
Yeah. But that's my point, is they'll figure out how to, I don't know, they're trying to make the earth turn faster or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I broke big stuff too.
Yeah. So that's part of why we do things the way we do, is it's try to make it easy.
Yeah.
So my friend, business partner, he actually does he's a very analytical person when it comes to engineering and design and things. He's not usually the designer, but he's the guy that will tell you if it's a good idea. And he's developing a process for us. It's actually really cool, where he calls it B factors, but either a benefit or a bonus.
Okay.
And we have a process that we can take it through, where it's like, we have this idea. So we'll sit down with the engineering team and you'll take it through this process and ask the right questions. And we have to have so many B factors in there or it's not worth it. Right. And it's part of what sets us apart as a company, because I don't want to just go build another tool, something that everybody else does, but we do just something that's a little bit faster or a little bit better. Right.
Sure.
And it's part of you look at the Velociwrapper, it's faster than the traditional method. It's safer than the traditional method. It's more cost effective than the traditional method. Oh, and by the way, there's no motors, there's no engines, right? And so there's all these factors that play into that to where it becomes basically I have to do it because I have no choice. That my options are that or something much, much worse because of all these factors. And it's part of our philosophy with the simplicity is if I have to stop and put fuel in it, that adds complexity, that adds money, that adds time. It adds safety factors. So let's figure out how to get rid of that, right? And Elon Musk has a saying that I really like. He says the worst thing an engineer can do is optimize a part that shouldn't exist in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's part of our philosophy is try to simplify it that way.
No, I love it. You've gotten rid of the high failure components don't exist in the design. And I don't know if that was intentional.
Absolutely.
Was it? Because I also I was looking at it on the floor and I thought, or is it just the simplest solution? I wondered if it was the first thought, the no motors, or it wasn't.
Nope. So the first thought was actually to drive it off of the wheels of the trailer.
Okay.
So, which would have had some sort of complicated gearing
stuck
system
with the trailer
or something like that. Now it's stuck on the trailer and everything. So what we came up with is much, much more simple, but it took some thinking and doing to do that, right? And you will iterate, and it's part of the engineering, the R&D process is you have to give yourself room to fail. Give yourself the ability to say, I have this idea, let's try it, and then have it not work, and not be discouraged, not give up at that point and say, oh, it's not worth it. Because if I have an idea, I can probably figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
And if I have a criteria to meet, usually the most amazing products come from an impossible spec.
Amazing products come from an impossible spec. So all right, maybe. Trying to think of, do you have an example?
Well, this, for example, where it's...
Yeah, I mean, I was maybe something more common because you're right. When a design person writes a spec, sometimes it can be very complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also thinking outside the box of, Henry Ford said it. He says, if we would have asked the people what they wanted, we would have given them a faster horse, right? Yeah. And so thinking outside where this impossible spec of can we create something that drives on its own, right? It seemingly was an impossible feat. And the Wright brothers, can we build something that flies in the air that's heavier than air, right? It seems like an impossible spec, and look where we are now with aviation, right? So that to me is a lot of fun, is to challenge myself with things that seem impossible and see if you can make it work. Because even if I don't reach the exact spec I have, it's probably further than if I would have scaled it back to what I think is possible.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Altair Energy Services, and their highly trained, expert technical staff, leveraging decades of renewable power management experience into customized solutions for everyone to meet their energy goals and contribute to a better future for all. Altair's team of hardworking, respected experts are providing full-scope, turnkey repairs, planned and unplanned maintenance, system upgrades, fully autonomous technical crews, supplemental staffing, and customized dynamic scheduling to fit your power production needs. Contact Altair at info@altairenergyservices.com and learn more about their wide range of capabilities across multiple power technologies and platforms. Now I love hearing that it started more complicated and you found ways to simplify it. That's harder, right? Because everybody's been looking at it and saying, this is how it works. Can we find a better motor? The bearing keeps going out. Can we find a better bearing that lasts longer, right? Can we find the one that's sealed so the elements aren't getting into it? Right? Because that you naturally try to solve for what failed with a better component, not removing the component.
Yeah, exactly.
That's much tougher for people these days. So yeah, one of my thoughts was it was so simple. I thought, like my great grandfather probably had something like this on his farm, right? Because and I wondered, was there some, older wisdom floating around in the shop that was like, you don't need that, just put this gear here.
No, actually, my older brother that came up with the design, he told me, he says, I can tell you the exact stoplight I was sitting at in Dayton, Ohio, when the idea popped into my mind. So it was seemingly out of the blue.
Wow.
Or it's just, oh, hey, that's how we're going to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that'll happen when you're working through a project as R&D, because I've done a lot of design in my life, right? And you're working through and it feels like you're just hitting a brick wall. And then all of a sudden you'll just have like, duh, right?
Yeah.
And then you go in there and get it done in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how many things come that way. And it's part of that positivity I'm talking about, because if I'm focused on the negative and the idea that I can't do it, will that idea ever even come? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's more likely to come if I'm focused on the positive. Like, it will come at some point. I will figure it out and keep trying. And again, give yourself the ability to fail. Give the other people around you the ability to fail, because I feel like empathy is a huge part of ingenuity, where I have to allow people under me to fail. Yes, with guardrails, so it doesn't mess the company up, right? But to a certain extent, let them fail and learn from those mistakes, because guess what? They'll never do again, right? So it's a huge part of my approach to the R&D world, right?
I love that. Giving space for creativity means giving space for failure.
For sure.
It has to occur. It's the only way I learned anything in my life, is by doing something wrong, I think.
It's for sure the most effective way to learn.
For sure.
And I learned some of this from, like, my brother. I made a pretty costly, well, I'll just tell you the number, $25,000 mistake early on in the company.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little concerned at first, because I'm like, he has every right to say, go back to your engineering electrical stuff, man.
Yeah.
But he came and says, it's not that big of a deal. Yes, it was costly. That's fine. Carry on. And he's the one that told me, guess what you'll never do again, right? And so that's the approach I've taken, learning that from him. But
I love it. What simple designing, or making it so, is there a term for it? For some reason my brain remembered, and maybe the term, a way to design something so overly complicated to do a simple task. It was like somebody's last name, right? Do you know this? Like, if I were to build, like, the dominoes that move the bowling ball, that light the match, drop a wire, and at the end it just flips the lights on, right? I designed this to
Rube Goldberg.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nice job, Rube Goldberg. What is the opposite of that? I don't know.
Simplicity, ingenuity. I think ingenuity is a huge part of that. It's the idea of, how can we make this in such a way that everybody else goes, why didn't I think about that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so simple.
Yeah.
They're just like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's so many things out there that are available. Like, again, going back to this abundance mindset, there's so many ideas out there like that. They're simple solution to big problems.
Yeah.
And it's just finding those.
So was your brother laying cable? Okay.
He was actually
living the life.
He was plowing cable.
Okay.
With a cable plow, so.
He was living the life.
He was.
And said there must be a better way.
Yeah, because my background, and all my other brothers, our background is electrical in the building industry. Mm-hmm. We did a lot of hotels, apartments, healthcare facilities type buildings. So I've done a lot of cabling on a lot smaller scale. So, and it's part of why with Velociwrapper, with our rebrand, it's like, who are we? We rebranded to, we will build tools for cable install, right? And we haven't limited ourselves to utility scale. We haven't limited ourselves even to renewables. It's cable install in general, because there's better ways to do it all.
Yeah.
I've done a fair amount.
Yeah, well, and then, your brother brought in the technical piece there, and now you're a leader in this company and you're bringing in the, motivating people to help build their careers and
Yep.
really find happiness in their life and their work. That's the magic to sustainability for a company.
Yeah.
I don't care what the company does, but if you don't have happy people that want to be there, you don't have a company.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, and have you read the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team?
Sounds familiar.
It's a great book. But in that book, he says, if you gave me the right group of people, I could go into any industry, any company, and dominate.
That's right.
And he says it doesn't have to be, when I say the right group of people, I mean mindset, not expertise.
Yeah.
And it goes against the grain for what most people think about. They're thinking, I've got to get somebody in here that's very knowledgeable about this. But going back to this mentor I was talking about from 7th grade, he went into that industry knowing relatively little about that industry, but he was very good at people, right? And he took them from, I don't know the exact numbers, but it was somewhere around 10 million to 600 million, right, a year. So it's a huge, huge, huge increase from somebody not good at the industry per se, but good at people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, good at people. Boy, good at stress.
Yeah.
Ross Bowman's been on this podcast, one of the founding members of Altair.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've ever seen him upset. Just no matter what it is.
Yeah.
The whole world could burn down and be like, it'll be all right. It'll be all right.
Well, and I love the bosses that
It's just easy.
I love the bosses and the managers that everybody feels like they're his favorite, right?
Oh, right.
It's like, hey, I can call him up. We're just good friends, right? And every person on the crew feels like they're, and this is how this mentor from 7th grade was. Every one of us students felt like we were his favorite, right? And that's what makes us successful.
It takes a lot of energy from a leader.
A lot of energy and a lot of sacrifice.
A lot of sacrifice, a lot of energy to make each person feel that valued.
Mm-hmm. It's very rewarding when you do.
Yeah.
It's extremely rewarding. It's so much more fulfilling, at least to me, than making more money. Building this business that goes international and everything is a lot of fun, but seeing people fulfilled and happy is a lot more rewarding than landing machines in Australia, right?
Yeah.
Not that that's not, but it's just more rewarding to see the people happy and fulfilled.
Yeah. Yes. Gosh, it is. I feel like I'm so busy sometimes I miss out on enjoying that and celebrating it. I can think of maybe a year ago, it's probably a lot less. One of the young men we hired fresh out of the military, right? So a very young man. And then, I don't know, a year or so later, I see him sending in the service reports to the customer. And I called Chance and went, he's the leader you made him the leader of the team? He goes, yeah. I was like, that's amazing. He's done this. And man, it almost brought tears to my eyes. I'm like, oh my goodness, how cool is that?
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Sometimes it's just those small little things.
Yeah.
You gotta pause and celebrate. Yeah, it is rewarding. All right, you got me reflecting on it now. Woo. That is really great. Okay. What is next for Velociwrapper? Although I think you guys should start offering engineering services since you have the right mindset on simplicity, and that is needed in our culture today.
It is. I keep the engineering team pretty busy.
Yeah.
On the Velociwrapper side, because we do have new things coming up, but also I told you earlier that I'm involved in more projects than just Velociwrapper, and we use engineering on most of those. So we'll use some of the same engineering and help them to branch out and try different things, right? Because sometimes maybe the cable install industry is not something that they're passionate about, that they want to get into, and so they branch out into another industry, and it resonates with them a lot more. So give them that ability to move around, but we do keep them pretty busy right now.
Okay, 2, and you're busy, and yep, clearly you're helping. What else are you guys working on? You're allowed to talk about a few other products, or is it still R&D?
Well, the biggest one is that opening one, right? So we can open the Velociwrapper, take the cables out mid-run. There's been a fair amount of feedback on that. It's turning out to be more complicated than I thought to build that, because spanning an open space with a spinning
Right.
a spinning carriage that spins pretty fast, I mean,
Yeah.
4 times a second,
Sure.
is very difficult. But I've been pretty impressed with both of my full-time engineers are young guys, right? They're 22 and 27 or 8,
Oh, yeah.
I think. But I've been pretty impressed with what they've been able to do with it. Coming up with a pretty ingenious drive system that ties all together and everything. So that's something that it's really exciting to see. They have another product that's partially designed right now that is for basically for running all the DC collection cables underneath the arrays above ground. So a roller system that goes on there.
Okay.
Again, came from feedback from crews, right? So we'll be doing something with that over the next little while and find out, what people want. I've actually been approached by subsea people
Oh,
wanting to wrap subsea, and that's a whole different animal,
right.
right? So, I mean, it was bad enough figuring out how to ship Velociwrappers on ships that aren't going to be wrapping on the sea, right?
They're just sitting there.
Well, yeah, because that corrosion's pretty bad.
Right.
So that they're a big international push right now is a big part of it.
For subsea.
Like I told you earlier, well, for Velociwrapper in general. Landing my first machine in Australia here in the next week or 2.
Congrats.
Thank you. It's been in the works since 2022. So
Oh, man. That's a good time to celebrate.
yeah, that's a huge accomplishment for us. And we've all but put in place a partner in country. And we're planning on doing a little bit of a road trip to job sites and start moving machines, right? And it's going to help us a lot because of the feast and famine portion of this, where it's famine during the winter because nobody's digging.
Right.
Try to balance that with Australia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their winters during our summer. So that's a big push for us. I sent guys to Australia in March, and I sent a guy to Dubai in March. So a big push over there. I've got customers from Egypt, or potential customers from Egypt, reaching out. So big international stuff for us.
Awesome. South America energy infrastructure's kind of booming.
So I've got that too.
Not kinda. It's booming.
Got that too. I had a great big company from Colombia reach out.
Okay.
They want to push the Latin America market for us.
Yeah.
So we're working through that. And of course, all these are potential, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to work through them and get everything in place. But I think that's, when you say what's next, that's a big part of it, is the international push and try to grow this and branch out.
Yeah, you're offering stability to the company with this strategy.
Mm-hmm.
That's brilliant.
Well, and try to get more stability to a point that I can put more money behind R&D. Because when it's all going to operations and building the machines and sales, right, then it's trickling into R&D. And the more we get into R&D, the quicker we can start building more things, because I've got tons of ideas. I've pulled a lot of cable in my life, and I've got a bunch of brothers that have, and a bunch of friends that have, and we have a lot of ideas for sure.
Oh, it's awesome.
So, and I want to branch into, not in the short term, but in the long term, I want to branch into the general building industry as far as cable install, because there's this huge need, right? I mean, I'll just tell you, I was working on a building in Hutchinson, Kansas, and it was a 9-story apartment building. So we're pulling all these big MC cables up through all these floors, and they would pick it up and hand it to the next guy on the next floor, and then they run up to the floor above that and hand it up. Well, when you get 9 floors of cable hanging, it's not light. And I was on the 8th floor, and I picked that cable up, and it slipped and fell. And the instant thought that crossed my mind is the guy on 2nd floor is going to die.
Yeah.
Because that thing's going. So I actually belly flopped and just bear hugged that thing and sideburn the trash out of my face and everything. But that's the type of thing that starts to get you to think of, when it's especially a safety issue, it's like, how can we fix this?
Yeah.
How can we change this? And I have so many stories like that I could tell, that over years and years of pulling cable, how can we fix this? How can we make things easier? improve people's lives, right? That's the bottom line is, again, make them the hero.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, a lot of cable gets pulled up wind turbines. We've been a part of that.
Yeah.
I hear you. Okay. So it's focused around cable, but, it's nearly endless because, you get it into buildings and now you've got a whole new animal.
Yeah, for sure.
Smaller spaces. Yeah.
Well, and the industry's not going away anytime soon, right? Cable install's a big deal. Overall, no matter what kind of energy you're talking, cable install is a part of that.
Yep.
So if we can figure out how to improve the daily lives of cable installers, I guess is the goal.
Till somebody perfects Nikola Tesla's energy transfer device, and then you don't need cable.
There you go. And we'll just pivot into that, right?
Yeah. That's it.
Building electrical airways.
That's it. We're putting coils everywhere. Oh, I love it. You guys are onto something special. You've solved a problem. The zip tie market's hating you. Yeah. They've got your face in a Raptor, like a dartboard in their office. But
I flew a banner above some of the trade shows I did with an airplane banner.
Okay.
It was a Velociwraptor just chonking down on the zip ties.
Oh, I like it.
And those things.
We eat zip ties for breakfast. That's good. You guys are onto something special. And, it's not, boy, you kind of got a few good things going for you. Almost like you got, there's 3 pillars that you've explained, right? You have a wonderful designed, elegant solution for cable install. You have this motto and mission towards positivity that you intentionally offer your employees, which is way special, by the way. Very rare to see that pillar in any company. And then, the engineering mindset, I think, is the other big one, right? A lot of engineers run around in this world right now. And they are maybe not thinking about how do we make it simple. Yeah. Right? They're learning new technology and how to utilize those new technologies as a medium for whatever design challenge they're offered.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, and I think also thinking outside the box to where it's not even how do I use this technology, but how do I discover new ones, right? Because that's difficult. That's difficult to come up with something that's so far out there that everybody laughs at you at first, and then a few years later they're all using it, right? Yeah. So.
Yeah. Maybe that's the metric. If you present the idea and everybody laughs, you go, I got something good.
Well, it's interesting because I actually encourage some of this. Okay. So we've done these design parties, we'll call them, where basically you get people together. We have this idea. We have this problem, right? Let's come up with ideas of how to solve this problem. And you gather people in the room. Yes, the engineers. Yes, the R&D department. But gather some of the young guys in here who don't know anything, right? Because they're not stuck in the mindset of this is how we've always done it, right? So you get them in there and say, okay, pass out sticky pads. Everybody write down ideas of how to do this. They can be as crazy as you want, because even if it's a super crazy idea that everybody laughs at, it might spark a thought in somebody else's mind, right? So it's fun because somebody's like, what if we put propellers on there like a drone and just fly this thing over there, right? And it's
I love it.
It's crazy out there idea, but maybe something comes from that. Maybe an idea pops into somebody's mind that wouldn't have had they not heard that, right? So it's encourage that way far out thinking, that almost childish imagination of sci-fi, right? Yeah. Because really, really cool ideas come from that. And then encourage that. And then you take all these ideas and narrow it down and boil it down into maybe 10 really, really good ideas that you can now give to the R&D department and say, here's your list of things to do, right? Yeah.
This episode brought to you by RST Cranes. With over 30 years of experience, RST Cranes brings the industry expertise to every project. From wind turbines to solar inverters, mining operations to industrial construction. RST Cranes is your heavy lift specialist, located in Tehachapi, California, and serving the surrounding areas. Contact RST Cranes for your next project at www.rstcranes.com. This sounds like the old we're going to throw the egg off the top of the building exercise, and everybody designed their solution. And yeah, you can see who really understands, well, let's change the speed of descent instead of managing the collision.
Exactly.
Right? That's really, do you go past ideation in the room and give them materials like, cardboard, foam, wood, and say, show me?
We haven't really. So what we've done is basically build out all these things, right? Stick them all over the walls. When you're done, everybody can go around, look at them all, and then you can vote on them and bring it down to 10, right? Now we have these 10 ideas listed out. We haven't really done any of that, the physical stuff. But it's mostly just come up with those 10 ideas, and now we can take those and put them in. Because my goal with the engineering department is I don't want to go to them and say, here's an idea, figure it out.
Yeah.
I want to say, here's an idea, here's the criteria it needs to meet. So we did this with, for example, this Velociwrapper that opens. We sat down and said, okay, what exactly is our criteria here? And at the end of the meeting, it was, I want to get the cables out within 90 seconds and no tools. It's an almost impossible spec. But some really cool things have happened because of that, right? Where they're coming up with really cool latch systems that and the other part of it is it has to be intrinsically safe, right? So it can't, if the door it accidentally doesn't latch, it doesn't rip itself to pieces and hurt people, right? So that type of thing where when we leave that room, then the engineers have, it needs to do this, it needs to do this, it needs to do this, and they can figure out how to get it to do that. But it's not just an open-ended, hey, we need a wrapper that you can get stuff out of.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's very it's very vague.
No, I like the time constraint. Safety for sure. So you got to remove the mechanical energy, right? No hands by moving parts. But then you put the time on it.
Yep.
Ooh, I like that one.
Well, and it's created because it's fairly simple to make it to where I can pull it out through a complicated process, right? But as soon as I'm going to narrow that down to I can't use tools, right? I don't have to go get the truck and drive it over to where the trailer is now.
Yeah.
And get out my impact, right? And take this thing apart. So no tools, but also that time where it's now you have to design a latch system that I can just reach in there and just pop it with one hand and pull this thing out, right? And it becomes much more challenging, but much more rewarding, because when we meet that spec, you have a 22-year-old engineer that's like, I did that.
Yeah.
I actually met that spec. And that is so
very rewarding,
so empowering.
Let's not forget that that's one of the critical to quality pieces for your customers, because all of that time is money.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So you're very customer focused straight off the bat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and also the tiny things, and I encourage the R&D department to do this a lot, where I'm saying for a company to come buy a high dollar item, big machine, right? Then finance, it's really cool to get the price down. It's really cool to have this, that, the other. From the mechanical perspective for maintenance, it's really cool to not have to refuel it. It's really cool to not have tons of maintenance that I have to do on this. But from the guys that use it every single day, the really cool things are the little tiny things, like a little duct tape holder, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden they're like, these guys thought of everything. And it might be something so simple, but we weld one little thing on there and it completely changes the lives of the people in the field, because it's like they thought about the duct tape, right?
The duct tape holder. Sounds to me like the paper towel holder on my Blackstone at home. Like, all right, you talk to somebody that barbecues a lot.
Exactly. But it's those little tiny things that I think make such an impact in people's lives, because you have to think about everybody involved.
Yeah.
You have to think about, yes, the corporate and the finance and everything, but you boil it down to the guy out in the field running this machine. What makes his life better? And sometimes it is super simple.
Super simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's your design criteria. I mean, paramount to design in your company. I love it. You guys are doing great things, and with all the right motivation and focus and interpersonal growth behind it. That intangible piece is probably, one of the strongest, I don't know what to want to say, like engines behind the company, so to speak.
Yeah, it's the glue that holds it all together.
There you go.
Because every company will have their low points.
Sure.
Every company will have their struggles, and it's that one piece that's going to hold it together throughout. And it has, because we've had our struggles. One of the big reasons we rebranded is we were not set to grow. Because my brother built this thing in his garage and sold it, and it was like, yay, let's go build these things, right? And then they start selling, and I did a few all-nighters welding, right? And it's like, what are we doing? We want to help people here. And so if we're going to do that, we're going to have to get serious. We have to sit down and figure out who we are and what exactly is our goal here. So it's part of that is, get on that level of growth, not just me, but everybody to come up. And it's been a lot of fun, because now the welders in the shop are all thinking about ways to improve this. We doubled our production without adding any people. And the way we did it is by listening to the welders, right? We started tabbing and slotting everything to where it's laser cut and it goes together like a puzzle, instead of having to jig everything up for an hour before you weld it, right? So you snap it together. That has a little tab that slides into a slot, and you weld it. And we doubled our production without adding a single person in the shop. And from the shop people's perspective, that's very rewarding, because they were part of that process.
Yeah.
They got to help build this out. And now they become the leaders as you grow.
That's right.
And then they can do that for the next generation, the next people that come in, and then they move up, and that does it. And it's a lot of fun. Early on in this business, and my brother was standing there at the time. He was CEO, and he looked at all the guys in the shop. We were standing around at 7 a.m. before we started work, and he says, "I want you guys to take my job."
Yep.
And that's the kind of attitude that I love about this company. And it's why I'm still here. We've had some pretty tough times, and getting through it. I mean, going through the whole rebrand, it was slow.
I bet.
It was slow. It was very expensive. It was difficult. It took a lot of grit to get through it. But we're coming out of that now and just riding this wave. It's a lot of fun. So
I love that. It's the right attitude.
Yeah.
About yourselves, about your people, about the company.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty rare to find, EJ. Pretty rare to find.
I'm very fortunate, the group of people we have.
Yeah.
For sure.
I hope more folks out there hear this and think about implementing some of these key steps in their own team, in their own life.
I'd love nothing more than for other companies to compete with the positivity, right?
Yeah.
To have people have so many choices where it's like, well, all these companies are super positive. I want to work for everybody. Right?
Yeah.
I'd love nothing more, because again, it goes back to that abundance mindset. I don't ever feel like that I will lose out because of that, ever.
No, you won't.
Yeah.
No, that's not a losing strategy.
Correct.
It's the definition of a winning strategy.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. And yeah, well, we'll get this podcast out there and see how many extra people you were able to hit. you can tally it to your 100 million person goal.
Yeah.
We might be good for, I don't know if we churn 20,000 a month or something. It's not a big number yet, but it's not bad.
So, yeah, it's something for sure.
Yeah, well, and we'll see if we can help get the message out.
Well, and if you can get one person to have a better experience because of that, all of a sudden it was worth it, right? It's all it takes is one. And even that's very rewarding, where it's just one person tell you at some point, by the way, you helped me improve my life because of your attitude, because of everything. That's very, very, very rewarding.
It is. It is. Especially when you see that relief in their eyes, or attitude change, perception change. Yeah, it is.
And I saw this at this company, this electrical contractor I was working with. That I had a cousin that worked there, and nobody liked him on the jobs. All the foremen didn't like him. They all asked their project manager to get him off my job, get him somewhere else. Well, he ended up on a job site in Montana. The foreman up there was a friend of mine. Eventually, I flew up and walked his job with him. And I was walking with him and says, hey, if you just just a question. If you had to get rid of your entire crew except one guy, who would it be? And he said, it's him. And it hit me between the eyes. I was like, whoa, because nobody liked him. And I asked him, I says, well, why? Why is that? And he's like, he's a darn good worker. Darn good worker. He has a good attitude. And later on, when I asked my cousin about it, he says, he gave me a chance. He said, you know what? I'm gonna work through this. I'm gonna let you stumble, but I'm gonna believe in you. And it completely changed it to where he was the most valuable person on the crew, according to the foreman.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of fun to see.
Yeah.
That the one person can change somebody's life so drastically. And who knows but what that changes his life on a personal level.
Right.
If he has struggles in his personal life with drugs or whatever, maybe that gives him the confidence to get over that and to move on. You never know.
Again,
there's so many compounding things that could come from that.
So simple, a child can understand it.
Correct.
I'm like, you've simplified this, right? But it takes a lot of effort to make it happen. It does. I was very young and somewhere in the Midwest, a lot of snow, and I was tasked to hire the team that's going to work here locally. And how do I choose them? Like, I didn't know anything about anything. I was way too young. And as my boss is walking out the door, he goes, if you think they could be smiling, buried up to their neck in snow, hire them. Get 9 of those. I went, okay.
Simplify it, yeah.
So we don't care what they know, as long as they...
Well, there's something to that for sure.
Yeah.
Because you can train somebody if they're willing to learn.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
But if
it is the attitude.
Yeah.
It is
for sure.
The attitude. Well, EJ, I mean, I can't thank you enough for coming out here and telling this story, man.
Thank you. If you can't tell, I like talking about it.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think this was more about helping people than Velociwrapper, but we got it in there.
Well, like I said, we are primarily a company that builds people, and the products are a side thing.
Man, that's cool.
So, and those help people too. So there you go.
Yeah. Anything else you want to cover or share before we wrap up?
Not really.
Pretty good.
Think I've about covered my whole life.
Well, I mean, we didn't go pre-7th grade.
That's true.
But next time.
Back when I was throwing rocks at the neighbors, right?
That's it. That's it.
That was my life before 7th
cover
grade.
why was there only a 7th grade? I really appreciate it. Thanks for making the trip down here and telling this story. And I am certain that the message is going to help other people.
I hope so.
Yeah, we don't talk about this enough, but we probably should talk more about emotional health and mental health and all of those wonderful things that really make us go around, you know.
For sure. For sure.
Well, thank you again, and
thank you.
Can't wait to see what happens throughout the rest of the year with Velociwrapper.
Big things.
And I hope you guys see those kangaroos on your next trip.
There you go.
Yeah, going to Australia and not seeing a kangaroo is not okay.
True.
That's great. All right, thanks again.
I'm sure we will. Thank you.